Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special LinkedIn Live today as we're coming to you live from IBM headquarters at Dreamforce in San Francisco. And today we're going to be speaking about some of the news that's come out of Dreamforce today, all to do with AI, amongst many other announcements, as well as talking about the IBM State of Salesforce report, which is in its 12th year now, and highlight some of the most important trends and insights that we're seeing in the Salesforce ecosystem. So to chat to me today, I've got Salesforce MVPs, Phil and Jared. So Phil, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Phil Weinmeister with IBM. Honored to be a Salesforce MVP. And I've written a few books on Experience Cloud and declarative development that are out there in the ecosystem. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem now for about 13 years, and I absolutely love the Salesforce platform. So super excited to be here today at Dreamforce with Ben and Jared.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. I'm Jared Kingston. I'm a solution engineering leader with IBM. And I'm super excited to be here. Right? I've been in the ecosystem for many, many years now. I think this is maybe like my 14th Dreamforce. So super excited about a lot of the announcements that are coming out, and excited to cover some material today.
Great, thank you so much. And there's a lot of people out there who don't get the chance to go to Dreamforce, so we are pretty lucky. But Phil, maybe could you mind describing kind of what Dreamforce is like for those people that haven't had the chance to come here?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, it's a massive conference. I think the people are one of the key parts of the conference. There's a ton of networking that goes on. Obviously, there's a lot of information, whether it's through the keynotes or other sessions, but Salesforce goes all out. So it is quite the experience. You have everything themed exactly right, and it takes up quite a bit of this area of San Francisco. So in terms of a great place to learn and meet people, it's something that I don't think I've seen paralleled anywhere else. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, very true. I saw the setup yesterday, and the amount of plants they are loading into Moscone is just insane, like tens of thousands of them. And Jared, what would you say is your favorite thing about Dreamforce? Like you said, this was your 14th, which is pretty mad.
Yeah. I'd say probably one of my favorite things, besides certainly learning a lot of new things, is really just getting to reconnect with, old colleagues, current colleagues, customers, partners, and really just reconnect around what we're doing within the ecosystem, and like I said, learning new things is really great too, because you get to immerse yourself in new content, from the keynotes to sessions, to just kind of walking around the Trailblazer forest and catching some live demos from Salesforce experts. And so that's probably one of my favorite things, is just to kind of reconnect and learn some new things.
Nice, very cool, thank you. I think a big mistake that first timers make coming to Dreamforce, they pack their calendars full of sessions and leave no time just to walk around and have a bit of free time to explore, which is, it's pretty nice to do that and meet people from the community. Great, so thanks for that. So today we're going to primarily talk about the IBM State of Salesforce report and 5 insights that IBM have identified as being some of the most important throughout 2023 and 2024. But Jared, first up, could you give us some insight into what the report actually is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the report is really, our way of giving back to the Salesforce ecosystem, right? So, it's really our version of a thank you note, if you will, where, we are taking the insights and the research that we've gathered from our customers, partners, as well as just being one of the top, Salesforce customers and system integrators, and sharing that with the broader ecosystem to help their business thrive.
Yeah, it's quite a unique perspective, being a consulting partner and a very, very large customer as well. And Phil, what actually goes into creating this report?
So yeah, that's a pretty cool thing about the report. It's not just the opinion of a few that goes into making this report. So thousands of executives are surveyed across many industries, at least 25 industries in at least 15 countries. And we take all this data, review it, analyze it, and we come up with these insights and trends. So It's very data driven. We have the pulse of the customer, and we're listening to what customers are saying. So yeah, the end result is something that we hope is very useful and meaningful. So that's what goes into it.
Great, thank you very much. And yeah, so the actual number is 3,459 executives, which, so it's a very complete picture of the ecosystem. So without further ado, let's dive into these 5 trends. So just to give you a summary before we dive into each of them individually, the first one is, no surprises here, how generative AI is going to shape the future. Secondly, how Salesforce Industry Cloud is producing incredible ROI for businesses, which is something that I'm super interested in, so that'll be fun to speak about. Thirdly, how important it is to integrate data and dismantle data silos. Number 4 is investing in a change-ready culture for your organization, very important in the age we live in. And last but not least is emphasizing the point of how important it is to innovate to overcome becoming a stagnant enterprise. So let's dive into the one everyone's waiting for, AI, first up. So before diving in, I'll just throw a few facts out there to our audience from the report, which says 75% of CEOs believe they'll have a competitive advantage will depend on who has the most advanced generative AI. So, yeah, pretty unanimous there. 50% of CEOs are now integrating generative AI into their product and services. Pretty amazing. Again, not too surprising with the amount of stuff we're seeing out there at the moment. And 43% are using generative AI to inform their strategic decisions. And finally, generative AI sales budgets are expected to triple by 2025, which is only around the corner, with marketing and service budgets expected to more than double. So yeah, pretty major. So Phil, to kick off, this kind of wave of generative AI, the real thing. Like, what kind of conversations are you having with customers and people within IBM?
Yeah, great question. I think this is a question that's on the minds of a lot of people, a lot of organizations. So if I am to answer it, I would first say, let's get to the heart of the question. What does that really mean? What do people mean by the real thing? They want to know if this will actually bring material, meaningful, actual value, and if it'll last. So, looking at, whether it's Salesforce, IBM, other organizations, we're looking at the actual depth and legitimacy of some of the solutions that are out there today, and the pressure from the market to make sure those are successful. I would say yes, but there's more to it. And this gets into the conversations that we're having with customers. So it's kind of a yes, however response here. So it's all about the tools being applied properly. I think right now we have to think about the appropriate use cases. There is not just a magic wand that we can wave and just have this tool provide magic for us. So it will be easy for organizations who aren't properly prepared to fail in this attempt. So, and we can't necessarily blame the tools for that. So I think, summarize this, we need to look at approach, scope, and purpose, carefully establish and apply the right amount of high quality data to be ready. And, if that's all in place, I think there really is value waiting. So customers as a whole, and this gets into some of the conversations we're having, there's a little bit of a mix of excitement and hesitation. And so that's totally understandable, right? But ultimately, it's the job of organizations like IBM and Salesforce and others to help put them at ease, work with them, and ensure that all the stuff I mentioned is in place. So I think we're not necessarily there where there aren't a lot of big issues and challenges to think about, but we're far enough where I would say there's real value to be had, and it's here to stay.
Yeah, nice. It's definitely not just a case of kind of giving your users ChatGPT and going, run away with it. It's thinking about what you want to get out of it and the specific use cases. Yeah, completely agree. And Jared, part of the State of Salesforce report is IBM identified pioneers, which are people that are fully on board with Salesforce, getting the most ROI out of the system. And it identified that pioneers are already quite a big portion of them are already starting to experiment with AI in their organizations. And so what kind of benefits are these pioneers hoping to get out of generative AI?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest and first benefits, and the pioneers are seeing, but also I think a lot of companies right off the bat, right, um, is that ability to create a faster and stronger workforce, right? By taking and applying generative AI to those mundane tasks, right? Those repetitive tasks that we're always doing, that are really, in essence, killing productivity, right? We can then apply generative AI there, to help speed up our workforce, make them more effective, more efficient, with less effort on their end. And I think that's one of the key benefits. The other thing, right, especially that the pioneers are seeing, more so than, and you can read more about this in the report than the pensives, if you will, is, they really truly believe like this can have a true impact on top line revenue growth, right? Which every company, right, wants revenue growth. So I think from a benefits perspective, you think about creating a faster, more efficient workforce as well as more revenue. I mean, that's a win all around.
Yeah, completely see that. I mean, I think every role is going to have some kind of AI assistant in the future, and we're kind of seeing that coming out of Dreamforce today with Copilot. Every Salesforce user is going to have a Copilot, and they can just interact with that to help them be more productive in their day job. Above and beyond what we've already got in Salesforce, which is like loads of automation using Flow and other automation tools. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting time. And Phil, what kind of advice would you give to the Salesforce community who maybe necessarily haven't started skilling up on AI yet?
Yeah, so obviously, if you're in San Francisco this week and you're at Dreamforce, there are tons of opportunities here. There are multiple keynotes focused on AI and just tons of sessions. So this is an excellent chance. Salesforce has obviously gone above and beyond to focus on AI at Dreamforce this year. So make sure you take advantage of that. Like I said before, there's Salesforce Plus as well. So, even if you're not physically here, you can access some of that. Additionally, I will throw Trailhead out there. Salesforce is invested in that, made sure that there's content on Trailhead. I mean, you can just Google Trailhead AI and you'll start to find some trails. So that's, even if you're brand new to Salesforce, you can check that out. Additionally, I think a good target that Salesforce has put out there is the AI Associate Certification exam. So that just launched a week ago. It's, I did say associate, so there are now 2 certification exams at the associate level, and these were created to be more accessible, and to just say that clearly, they don't typically require as much study as some of the exams that might, for some, take 6 months or a year, right, to prepare for. So not saying they're, necessarily easy, but I think it's a realistic target that everybody can have. So the certification, again, is just a validation of what you already know. So it's not the learning itself, but that's a good target. I would say also, we don't necessarily want to just limit ourselves to Salesforce specific AI. And now Trailhead does a good job of kind of applying some general principles and things to learn, but there's a lot of information out there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be through Trailhead. So those are some ways to get started. But yeah, if nothing else, check out, Salesforce Plus and all the good Dreamforce content.
Yeah, no, great tips. And I think Salesforce also announced, don't quote me on this, but 3 or 4 new AI badges, or maybe even 5, or new modules yesterday as well. So there is some brand new content up on Trailhead. And yeah, I really like your point about, not just focusing on the Salesforce platform as well, because of course Salesforce are now integrating with, Anthropic and all these other AI models. So it could be that Salesforce professionals actually need to skill up on these other large language models as well as Salesforce's own. And Jared, something that Salesforce talks a lot about is this trust gap, which Phil kind of alluded to, which is, organizations not trusting AI, which is understandable because, it's a bit of a mystery box to some degree at the moment. If maybe a Salesforce professional feels their company, doesn't trust AI yet and they're hesitant to start experimenting, what kind of conversations can they start having with their management or executives to maybe kind of, ease them a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question, and one I'm sure a lot are struggling with right now. And I think honestly, it goes to probably any new technology or new process you're wanting to introduce to your company, right? You need to develop a vision, right? Create a vision. Think of what are the use cases that we can really impact with this technology and how we can create growth, how we can create more effective employees, right? And so I think if you can take generative AI and apply a vision, create use cases across the enterprise, that's going to help you with that executive level conversation, right? They're going to want to see, right, how is this going to affect things in a positive way? And I think furthermore, right, like you can then use that to actually go execute, right? So not only creating the vision helps you get that conversation started, as you get buy-in, you can start to execute on those and really see the benefit of that vision playing out. And frankly, it's going to encourage additional innovation once you start to get those first use cases bought in.
Yeah, 100%, and also talk about top line revenue, because I'm sure that will perk up the ears of some executives. Great, thank you very much, guys. So that's insight one ticked off, which is the impact of generative AI. And insight two, we're going to be talking about how industry clouds are helping Salesforce customers produce more ROI out of their system, which is something that I'm super interested in, actually, because when I started the consultancy back in 2016, Salesforce was starting to verticalize all their sales teams, their pre-sales teams. Everyone had an industry, and now Salesforce, of course, have acquired Velocity. So everything is moving in the way of verticalization. And in the State of Salesforce report, IBM found that pioneers see higher revenue on industry clouds than other Salesforce solutions. In fact, 150% more ROI than Pensive. Pensiv's are kind of at the other scale than the pioneers. And I thought what was also very interesting is in the quarterly earnings, which came out at the end of August, whilst revenue has slowed for core products like sales and service, industry clouds are actually growing at 50%. So, these could be the future because people get more ROI out of them, and they're obviously built for their industry. So, Jared, if we could start with you, could you give us an audience and insight into what industry solutions are and why customers see higher ROI on them?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about industry clouds, right, these things are more specific, customer-centric solutions that are really tailored to those specific industries. So by having an industry cloud, right, it allows organizations to serve up functionality, serve up capabilities at a faster rate because these things are built to serve their industry, as opposed to starting from a blank slate where now I have to put in the industry pieces as well as your specific business needs. By starting from an industry cloud, right, I start from the industry baseline, and then I can build in your specific needs from there, and allows me to do it much more quickly, right, than build it from scratch. So it's definitely something people need to pay attention to.
Yeah, nice. I always think if you've got like a Salesforce team aligned to an industry and they know what they're talking about, a consulting partner aligned to an industry and they know what they're talking about, and a product, you're kind of set up for success there. And Phil, could you give us some examples of features within a Salesforce implementation that you've been involved with that make Salesforce industry solutions so special?
Yeah, sure. I'll take a little different angle on this one. So share a little bit about what I personally do at IBM. So I head up a team that develops assets and accelerators for our customers. And these assets basically complement services. So we have our consultants who are out there understanding what customers want and looking to deliver that, and they leverage these assets and accelerators. Well, with these assets, we build them to be extremely flexible, configurable, and frankly, a lot of times they're industry agnostic. Well, what we've found out from customers is, right, they need these solutions to be very industry specific. So we've worked hard to take those and basically position them and configure them and build them out to be as useful as possible for our different customers. So that could mean we're pairing up our assets with an industry specific data model, or maybe embedding the assets within like an experience builder template, right? So it's basically critical to all our solutions to take what we've built, listen to the customers, and meet them where they're at with the industries. So that's just a huge piece that we can't ignore. It's super critical to our customers.
Yeah, great, thank you. There's a bunch more statistics I thought were so interesting in that section, the industry cloud one. But it's something we speak a lot about on the site about how specializations are great for Salesforce professionals' careers in order to advance them because those skills are so niche. So it's very nice to see that this kind of niche product at the moment is growing very fast, but also it's providing so much more ROI. So jumping on I think on the studio, right, as part of industry clouds, and so learning stuff like that could really be a boost to people's careers. Great. So next up, Insight 3, which talks about dismantling silos and therefore integrating data into the customer 360. So let's have a quick look about how data is becoming increasingly important in the age of AI. And of course, data's been important throughout the entire digital transformation age since the early days, but it's arguably more important than ever now because AI is going to be driven by the data that you have, and the cleaner your data is, the better your data is, the better the outputs of generative AI prompts are going to be. So the State of Salesforce report shows that pioneers are able to reveal new opportunities 39% more than pensieves, apply AI to generate insights 54% more, identify 28% more unmet customer needs, and discover new business models 37% more, which is pretty amazing. So Phil, could you give us some insights into why data is more important than ever in 2023?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like you said, data has always been critical to deliver value to customers across the board. That hasn't necessarily changed, but now, especially with AI and specifically generative AI, that data is just absolutely critical. Without that, the value that's driven by generative AI is just so much less. So it's like a starting point now. Not only the quality of the data, but the right amount, right? And that could be, you don't want to have too little data. You don't necessarily want to have too much data if it's irrelevant data. So it's become something that can't really be ignored, I think, at this point. So yeah, it's more important than ever because you will not get the value that you could potentially out of these new solutions and tools if your data is not in the state it needs to be in. So yeah, you hit on some of the measurables here, revealing new opportunities, new insights, identifying unmet needs, and basically making things more actionable. And those are all critical to every business.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. I mean, you can just imagine if you imagine like a really clean account with so much up-to-date data, the output from that about a sales email or something is going to be great. And you think of the worst account you've got with incorrect data, out-of-date, incomplete data, it's going to be a mess, and it could just go out to a customer and be a bit embarrassing. And Jared, so if a company does have data across disparate systems and it's not integrated into Salesforce, could you give us some examples of what insights they could be missing out on?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think what we're seeing from our customers, right, is you're missing out on that single source of truth, right? And because if I have data, say take a marketing example, right? If I'm trying to market to you, but I have data about you in Salesforce, and I have data over here in this other marketing system, right, of your activity, say in store versus online, right? If those things are not connected, then I can't market to you effectively, right? Because I don't have a full view of your activity with us, right? I can't see that. So I think that's one of the key major benefits that we're seeing people miss out on is simply being able to have that full view. And I know it gets talked about a lot, right? Customer 360, everyone talks about it and kind of throws it around, but it really is true, right? If you truly want to, have the best possible view of a customer, you've got to have all the data together, because that's going to give you that holistic view. And I think that's what we talk about in the report, right? Is that if you truly want to take advantage of your Salesforce investment, right, you got to bring data together, and it can lead to things like higher revenue per license, and really optimize your entire investment there. And ultimately, again, the key piece is better customer interaction, right? Because now you're getting messaging that's relevant to you because I know everything about your interactions with us.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. And an interesting statistic, which I haven't heard kind of referenced before in the report, is a metric called revenue per license, which is quite interesting, which tells us of Pioneer customers versus Pensive customers, it says that on average, Pioneers generate 40% higher revenue per license than Pensives, which is super interesting. So Jared, could you give us some insights into how organizations are able to do this when they start dismantling silos?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we kind of talk about this in the report, right, where the way they're able to do this, right, is they look at it as, hey, we need to develop this comprehensive kind of platform integration strategy, right? So how are we going to take data from all these systems and bring them together, right? Really break down those silos of data and bring them together. So I think that it starts there. What's the strategy, right? How are we going to consolidate? How are we going to really understand and act on data? Because I do think, in some ways it's kind of worthless if I'm just bringing data together to bring it together, right? I need to know how I'm going to act on that data when I do bring it together. And then I think too, right, I have to look at it from a operational perspective, customer data perspective, right? What back office data am I gathering? How am I what does that data look like, right? And then bringing it together. And then I can then think about how I can leverage something like generative AI against that data, because now I have a fuller view, a better data set. I've cleaned up data, right? I think that's one of the things we're seeing with a lot of our customers, and we're bringing tools to market for them, is your data is dirtier than you think it is. And if you truly want to utilize it well, right, especially with generative AI coming, you got to clean it first and you got to normalize some of that. And so I think that is how they're able to do it, right, is by understanding the data, cleaning it, and then having a strategy for how you bring it together.
Yeah, great. And I think kind of, Salesforce has been building to this over many years, because of course they acquired MuleSoft, which was, an integration tool to be able to bring in data. And now, they've got the Einstein 1 platform released today, which is bringing data cloud alongside AI, so it's all kind of falling into place to create this, hub of information, customer information that allows you to act on. So yeah, very, very interesting. And also core to this Dreamforce. And I think also, just to mention for those who haven't seen it, is Salesforce are allowing all enterprise and unlimited customers to have free data cloud starter licenses and 2 Tableau creator licenses, which is going to give everyone on those licenses the ability to start testing out these tools for themselves, these CDP tools, previously called Genie, now called Data Cloud. So yeah, that's really interesting as well. Cool. So on to Insight 4. So I'm sure most people in the tech world know by now that you have to be agile and have to be a change first culture to succeed in this fast paced world that we live in. And we've seen this through adopting IT, going through digital transformation, and now we found ourselves in the age of AI. But this is easier said than done, and the data shows that many companies aren't change ready. So Phil, the data shows us that pioneers prioritize measuring Salesforce ROI so that they can adapt more quickly. So why is it important to start with measuring Salesforce ROI?
Well, so C-level employees, obviously they need to see data to make business decisions. Even if a company's decided to go all in on Salesforce, I think you can look at it like, well, that's just the start of the journey, not the end of the decision making, right? So, it's about creating benchmarks, and it's about, adapting as you go along. I think this continued measurement is what's going to help organizations to adjust and pivot, right? If they don't have data that allows them to see the actual ROI on this investment, it's hard to determine, which areas maybe they previously overvalued, or which areas they prioritize too little that actually have potential. So it makes a lot of sense. It's very smart, and it's all about adapting and moving along. One of the things in the report was that the pioneers actually had significantly higher accuracy in measuring the ROI. So even that in and of itself is important, because if you're measuring inaccurately, you're obviously not going to get the data you need to make the right business decisions. So yeah, it's very important for them to be measuring from the very beginning and to not stop.
Yeah, makes total sense. Thank you. And Jared, the report also talks about crowdsourcing information for innovation, and the fact that pioneers are 38% more likely than pensieves to crowdsource innovation. So why is this so important for organizations?
Yeah, I think it's important in a lot of ways. And I think the first of that, right, is there is a wealth of knowledge within your organization, a wealth of experience, right? And if we're not tapping into that, we're truly missing out, right? So when you think about it, it's a cost-effective way to explore new ideas, right? Because these are my employees, right? These are people I'm already paying. I don't need to pay necessarily a consultant to get some of these ideas real time, right? Let's go to the workforce and let's get ideas from them. So, and really hear from them. What are some new ways that we can create for you to better perform your job? And then we can apply that from a technology perspective, right? Whether it's cross cloud experiences or how we bring clouds together. So uh, I think that's the first piece. I think the second piece, right, is you think about Salesforce adoption and the potential of your platform. I really think it helps you unlock more innovation on the Salesforce platform when you start to involve people in crowdsourcing ideas, right? Versus just kind of pushing them out. So I think what we see, and we kind of talk about this in the report, right? That the organizations that really focus on how their employee experience is going to be impacted by Salesforce integrations, they tend to more so mitigate risk for or mitigate potential risk for the customer down the line, right? Because they're really involving the employee in there and they're empowering them, right? And it's incentivized, right, for employees to do more with the data, right? Create better data because that's going to create better outputs, right? And those value added integrations. So I think, all that together, right? It's truly is a more optimized organization when you start to crowdsource from your team.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And of course, people are going to have different insights depending on what level they're organized, level of the organization, whether they're, just a BDR, sales manager, a VP, executive. So yeah, definitely a great idea. And Phil, how will someone in the Salesforce community be able to understand if their company is change ready? Like, what are some characteristics of a company that is change ready and maybe isn't?
Yeah, and this is one that I'm pulling straight from the report. So there's some good data on that. So the three things that you can look for to help determine if your organization is change ready. One, does it prioritize continuous improvement and measurement? We talked about that a little bit. Number two, does it integrate with business processes and other systems of record? Right, talking about getting the data ready and having clean data. And number three, does it empower employees to innovate? Innovation is a key part of this. You can't ignore that. So those are three ways. And obviously you can drill down into those a little bit more, but it at least gives some idea of, what you should be looking at.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And that brings us perfectly on to Insight 5, which is overcoming enterprise inertia with innovation. So, of course, innovation is something all companies know they need to do, but in reality, it can be a challenge. However, as the insight suggests, it's a surefire way to overcome a stagnant organization and breathe a new air of life into the organization. So, Jared, coming to you first, what does innovation mean to you in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Yeah, I think when I think about innovation in the Salesforce ecosystem, it may sound a little cliche, but I truly think, simply put, it's using Salesforce to its fullest extent, right? And that's really, optimizing, Salesforce to its fullest extent, optimizing your Salesforce investments, right? If you've invested in some area of the platform, say Service Cloud, Sales Cloud, what areas are you not tapping into, right? Are you using every possible area to help drive your business forward? And so I think it's that, and I think it's looking at these new announcements coming out, right, and seeing how you can take part in pilots and things like that to experiment on the front end before things come out in GA to drive your business forward and really break down different barriers within your business. So yeah, to me, innovation is really focusing on, hey, how can I get the most out of Salesforce instead of just using one small piece of it.
Yeah, No, very good points. And Phil, finally, before we wrap up today's chat, for those that want to help their organizations innovate more, maybe they feel they are a bit stagnant, what steps can they take to move their companies in the right direction?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we can't ignore the fact that this really has to do with culture and leadership. At least that's my opinion. I think when we talk about an organization being innovative, you have to have a culture of innovation. And that's something that I really think is driven by leading by example. So, a leadership team that says that they want employees who innovate, they need to show that. They also need to be okay with exploration and experimentation. There will be mistakes made. There'll be failures, and that type of culture is going to accept that as long as you get up and you continue. So I think valuing education, knowledge, awareness, willingness to try new things, that's all going to be important. Understanding best practices and things like that. But again, I think more than anything else, just fostering and supporting that type of culture that knows, hey, it's okay to try something new. Give them the right tools and support them in that decision and that approach.
Great. Thanks so much, Phil. So that brings us to the end of our special LinkedIn Live today, coming to you right from Dreamforce. So Jared, Phil, thank you so much for joining us today. Everyone can download the IBM State of Salesforce report, which is completely free. It should be in the comments or that way somewhere. And it has a huge amount of insight, which you can bring back to your company, but also apply to your own Salesforce career as well. So Phil, we'll come to you first before we sign off. Any last words? I think you and Jared both have got some more sessions this week, right? Presentations at Dreamforce.
Yeah, we have a few coming up this week. We'll be talking about some of the tools like Flow Orchestrator and Slack. Later today, we'll be talking about how to grow your career in the Salesforce ecosystem. So excited about that. So we're excited about that, and I'll leave it to Jared to give the very final words.
Yeah, so as Phil said, super excited to give some sessions around Slack and some of the, I think when you think about AI, I'm really excited about this Slack session and just talking about how AI can be built into some of your workflows, right? And utilizing Slack Workflow Builder as one of those pieces that I think is a little bit underestimated in its value. So super excited about that. And yeah, just learning more at Dreamforce. So thanks for having us, Ben.
Yeah, amazing. My pleasure. And thank you everyone who's tuned in today. And I'm going to leave you with this very epic video from IBM, and we'll see you all soon.